How dare you? How dare you speak when I am talking? You are nobody but just a maid.
Welcome to Heritage Story, your number one folktales channel for amazing stories.
The entire dining hall went silent, not because the music stopped, not because dinner was over, but because someone did the impossible. Under the crystal lights that hung like frozen tears from the ceiling, Miss Victoria, the billionaire's cold-hearted fiancée, pointed her perfectly manicured finger at a trembling maid and screamed the words everyone dreaded. "You're fired. Pack your things and leave this house immediately." Everyone froze. The chefs in the kitchen doorway, the servers holding empty trays, the security men near the exit. Even the head butler stopped moving completely. They all knew what was happening. Victoria always fired someone when she was upset, and today she was very upset because someone had accidentally served her cold tea instead of hot. But something unexpected happened. A voice spoke from the corner of the room, not loudly, not rudely, but clearly like a bell ringing in the darkness. It was a new maid, Ngozi, a small girl, a girl who arrived only 3 days ago, a girl nobody expected to even breathe too loud, talk less of speaking against the billionaire's powerful fiancé in front of everyone. But here she was, standing with her hands folded, her back straight, refusing to stay silent. Every worker turned their head in shock. "Excuse me," Victoria said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "What did you just say?" But Ngozi didn't step back. Her feet stayed planted. Her eyes stayed respectful but firm. And then, unknown to everyone, the billionaire himself, Mr. Emeka Okafor, stood just beyond the dining room entrance, returning from his office. He paused walking. He heard the commotion. He turned his head slowly toward the noise. Then he saw it. His fiancée trying to destroy a maid's life and the new maid defending her co-worker. Emeka didn't move forward. He didn't interrupt. He just watched, his pulse quickening because something inside him finally stirred awake. And the next words Ngozi spoke shook the entire household. "Miss Victoria, the tea was hot when it left the kitchen. I served it myself only 2 minutes ago." Her voice was calm but unshakable. Victoria's face turned pale, then red. Her eyes blazed with fury. She struggled to find words. Still nothing came out properly. Everyone stared at the new maid in disbelief, wondering if she had lost her mind. And from the doorway, Emeka whispered to himself, "Who is this girl? And why haven't I noticed her before?" And just as he was about to step forward, someone else entered the mansion behind him. Someone who wasn't supposed to arrive until next week. But before we get to who it was, we must go back to the very beginning. Because everything that happened in that dining hall started long before this moment, long before Ngozi ever set foot in the mansion. The story began 4 weeks earlier, in the heart of Lagos, where everyone knew about Emeka Okafor, the young tech billionaire who built Okafor Digital Solution from nothing. People admired him because he was kind, thoughtful, and always donated to orphanages and schools. But not many people admired his fiancée, Victoria Adeyemi. She was stunning. She was educated abroad. She was connected to powerful families, but she was also cruel. Very, very cruel. Inside the mansion, Victoria behaved like a queen in a kingdom that wasn't hers, even though she owned nothing there. She insulted workers, fired them without reason, and made them cry whenever her mood turned dark. And because they all needed their salaries desperately, none of them dared to complain. But Emeka never witnessed her real nature. Whenever he appeared, Victoria transformed, smiled sweetly, spoke gently, and acted like an angel. She deceived everyone outside the house completely, but not the people who worked inside. They saw everything, the cruelty, the insults, the threats that came with cold smiles. Still, they endured it because the pay was excellent and their families depended on it. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, the head housekeeper called everyone together. "We have a new maid starting today," she announced. Please welcome her warmly and help her settle in. The workers exchanged worried glances. Another maid. She won't survive. Victoria will break her like she broke the others. But when the new maid walked in, they were genuinely surprised. She was composed, respectful, soft-spoken, and something about her presence felt different, strong even though she wasn't trying to prove anything. Her name was Ngozi, and she came from a distant village to earn money and support her younger siblings after their parents passed away. Everyone liked her immediately, but they also whispered urgent warnings to her late at night. Stay invisible around Miss Victoria. Never question her. If she shouts at you, apologize even if you did nothing wrong. Ngozi only nodded politely each time, but deep inside her spirit, she knew she wouldn't allow anyone to strip away her dignity. Still, she remained quiet. She worked diligently. She avoided conflict until the fourth day when everything exploded. It started with something seemingly small. Victoria discovered that her imported silk scarf was missing from her dressing room, and immediately began screaming accusations at everyone. Who touched my belongings? Who dared enter my private space? Workers scattered in every direction like frightened birds fleeing a storm. She marched into the servants' quarters, shouting insults at the maids lined up nervously. She shoved one against the wall. She slapped another across the face without warning. She cursed at everyone viciously. Useless thieves, every single one of you. Then her burning gaze landed directly on Ngozi. You, new girl, step forward right now. Ngozi moved forward slowly, her heart pounding but her face calm. Did you take my scarf? Victoria screamed directly into her face. No, Ma. I did not touch anything in your room. Ngozi answered softly but clearly. Victoria's expression twisted with rage at the response. You dare answer me with that tone? You dare look me in the eyes? Before anyone could react or breathe, Victoria raised a hand high to slap Ngozi hard across the face. Everyone turned away, too frightened to witness what was coming. But when the slap descended toward Ngozi's cheek, it never made contact because Ngozi's hand moved up instinctively and caught Victoria's wrist. Gently but firmly, like catching a falling branch before it hits the ground. That was the exact moment the entire mansion seemed to stop breathing. As Victoria struggled furiously to pull her wrist free, shocked and humiliated beyond words, something unexpected happened behind everyone. The person who entered behind Amaka, the one who witnessed the entire scene, spoke loudly with authority. Victoria Adeyemi, is this how you treat people? Everyone spun around immediately. Victoria's confident face crumbled completely. Amaka's heart nearly stopped beating because her voice belonged to someone who had the power to expose everything, and that person was the last individual Victoria ever wanted to see in this house. The servant stood paralyzed. Ngozi released Victoria's wrist carefully and stepped backward, not wanting more trouble. Standing beside Amaka with arms crossed and disappointment written across her face was Mama Blessing, the elderly woman who raised Victoria after her mother died young. People said Mama Blessing was the only person Victoria genuinely feared. Not because Mama Blessing was harsh, no, but because Mama Blessing always spoke truth without fear, even when Victoria hated hearing it. Mama, Victoria stuttered weakly. Her voice suddenly sounded like a frightened child's. But Mama Blessing didn't smile. She didn't soften her expression. She just stared at Victoria, then at Ngozi quietly standing aside, then back at Victoria again with heavy disappointment. So this is a woman you have become, Mama Blessing said quietly. Her voice was gentle, but it felt like thunder rolling slowly across the sky. The workers lowered their heads respectfully. Even Amaka looked genuinely shocked by the scene unfolding. Victoria finally yanked her hand completely free and stepped away, trying desperately to regain her composure and pride. Mama, this girl disrespected me first, she protested loudly, pointing an accusing finger at Ngozi. But Mama Blessing shook her head slowly, deliberately. I saw everything clearly, she said firmly. And so did he. She tilted her head slightly toward Amaka, standing silently. Victoria's heart plummeted like a stone thrown into deep water. Amaka's eyes were colder than anyone had ever witnessed before. But he didn't speak immediately. He simply stood there observing, studying the woman he planned to marry, the woman he thought he understood completely. "You told me you were changing," Mama Blessing continued sadly. "You promised me you were working on your character and becoming better." Victoria swallowed hard, her throat dry. Mama, you know I'm trying my best, but—" Mama Blessing lifted one weathered hand to silence her instantly. "Trying by attacking workers? By humiliating everyone? By embarrassing yourself in front of your future husband?" The workers lowered their gazes again. Some felt unexpected pity for Victoria. Others believed she finally deserved this reckoning moment. Ngozi quietly moved further back, hands folded respectfully, eyes down. She genuinely didn't want trouble. She only wanted basic human respect and dignity. But Victoria refused to accept defeat easily. She pointed at Ngozi again, her voice rising defensively. "This girl insulted me. Why is everyone protecting her? She's just a common maid." That single statement changed the atmosphere completely. Slowly, Amaka's eyes lifted with intensity. His voice came out soft but carried tremendous weight. "No one in this household is just anything." Victoria looked at him, genuinely stunned by his tone. But he wasn't finished speaking yet. "Everyone here has a family depending on them. Everyone here has emotions and dreams. Everyone here works honestly and hard, and every single one of them deserves fundamental respect." Victoria blinked rapidly, struggling to process his words. She opened her mouth to argue further, to defend herself, to shift blame somewhere else. But before any words could escape her lips, the mansion's main door swung open dramatically. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway, approaching fast. A tall man in police uniform entered the living area with 2 officers behind him. His face was serious. His eyes scanned the room carefully before landing on Victoria. Everyone froze completely. The man spoke clearly. "Miss Victoria Adeyemi." Victoria's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Yes." The police officer pulled out a folded document from his jacket pocket slowly. "We have received a formal complaint against you," he stated officially. "We need you to come with us for questioning regarding an incident that occurred 3 years ago." Victoria's legs wobbled beneath her. She grabbed the back of a nearby chair to steady herself. "What incident? I don't understand what you're talking about." The officer unfolded the paper carefully. "The death of Miss China Okonkwo, who was employed in your father's household. New evidence has surfaced." The entire room gasped collectively. Mama Blessing covered her mouth with both hands. Amaka's eyes widened in complete shock. Ngozi felt chills run down her spine. Victoria shook her head violently, desperately. No, that was an accident. Everyone knows it was an accident." The case was closed. The officer remained calm but firm. "The case is being reopened based on witness testimonies that were previously suppressed. You have the right to remain silent, but you must come with us immediately." Victoria turned frantically toward Amaka, tears streaming down her face suddenly. "Amaka, please, you have to believe me. I didn't do anything wrong. Please don't let them take me." But Amaka stood frozen, his mind racing, trying to process everything happening too fast. Mama Blessing stepped forward slowly, her voice trembling. "Officer, may I ask what new evidence appeared?" The officer glanced at his notes. Multiple servants from her father's estate have come forward. They claim Miss Victoria physically assaulted Miss Chine repeatedly, and on the day of her death, Miss Chine was running away from Miss Victoria when she fell down the staircase. Victoria screamed, "They are lying. They are all lying because they hate me." But the officer continued without emotion. Medical reports indicate Miss Chine had bruises consistent with repeated physical abuse. The servants' testimonies all match, and there's security footage that was recently discovered. Victoria collapsed onto the floor, her entire body shaking uncontrollably. Amaka, please, I made mistakes, but I didn't mean to kill her. You have to help me. Amaka finally spoke, his voice hollow and distant. Victoria, did you hit her? Victoria looked up at him, tears flooding her eyes. I pushed her once, maybe twice, but I didn't push her down the stairs. She fell because she was running. Amaka closed his eyes, pain washing over his face. Why were you pushing her at all? Victoria had no answer, only sobs. The officers stepped closer. Miss Adeyemi, please stand up. We need to leave now. Mama Blessing knelt beside Victoria sadly. Child, you must face what you have done. Running from truth never brings peace. Victoria grabbed Mama Blessing's hands desperately. Mama, please tell them I'm not a bad person. Please. But Mama Blessing's tears fell too. You are not entirely bad, but you have done bad things, and now you must answer for them. The officers gently helped Victoria to her feet. As they led her toward the door, she looked back at Amaka one final time. I loved you, she whispered brokenly. I really did love you. Amaka's voice came out quiet but final. Love doesn't hurt innocent people, Victoria. Then she was gone. The door closed. The mansion fell into heavy silence. Everyone stood motionless, processing everything that had just unfolded before their eyes. After several long minutes, Mama Blessing turned to Amaka. I am deeply sorry you had to discover her true nature this way. Amaka nodded slowly, unable to find adequate words. Mama Blessing continued gently. But perhaps this happened now to save you from greater pain later. Imagine if you had married her first. Amaka sat down heavily on the nearest chair, his head in his hands. The workers quietly began returning to their duties, speaking in hushed whispers. Ngozi started to leave the room as well, not wanting to intrude on such a private moment. But Amaka's voice stopped her. Ngozi, please wait. She turned around respectfully. Yes, sir? Amaka looked at her with exhausted but grateful eyes. Thank you for standing up earlier. If you hadn't spoken, I might never have seen the truth. Ngozi shook her head modestly. I only said what needed to be said, sir. Nothing more. Amaka managed a small, sad smile. Sometimes that's exactly what changes everything. Mama Blessing approached Ngozi and took both her hands warmly. You have a strong spirit. Child, don't ever let anyone diminish it. Ngozi blushed slightly, feeling embarrassed by the attention. Thank you, Mama. As the evening progressed, news spread quickly through Lagos. The billionaire's engagement was over. His fiancée was arrested. Everyone was shocked. Some people gossiped cruelly. Others felt sympathy. But inside the mansion, something else was happening. Something quieter but more powerful. The workers felt free to breathe properly for the first time in months. They smiled genuinely. They spoke without fear. And Amaka began the difficult process of healing from betrayal and deception. Over the next several days, more details about Victoria's past surfaced publicly. Newspaper headlines screamed the story. Social media exploded with opinions. Former servants from her father's house gave interviews describing years of abuse and intimidation. Chine's family finally spoke openly about their pain and their long fight for justice. The truth was devastating. Victoria had tormented Chine for nearly 2 years before her death. She accused her of theft repeatedly without evidence. She denied her food as punishment. She forced her to work through illness and exhaustion. And on that terrible final day, Victoria had screamed at Chine for accidentally breaking an expensive vase. Chine, terrified and crying, tried to run away. Victoria chased her through the house. When China reached the staircase, she stumbled in fear and fell 20 steps down. She hit her head severely and died 3 days later in hospital without regaining consciousness. Victoria's father, a wealthy businessman, had used his connections to suppress the investigation. He paid witnesses to stay silent. He threatened Chime's poor family into accepting a small settlement and dropping all complaints. But guilt eventually consumed several of those witnesses. When they heard Victoria was about to marry another wealthy man, they decided they couldn't stay silent anymore. They contacted Chime's family. They went to the police together. They brought forward the security footage Victoria's father thought he had destroyed. Now everything was unraveling completely. Amaka watched the news reports in his study, feeling sick to his stomach. How could he have been so blind? How did he miss all the warning signs? Mema Blessing visited him that evening, bringing tea and quiet comfort. "You are not to blame," she said gently, sitting beside him. Victoria was skilled at hiding her true self. Many people were fooled. Amaka shook his head, but the workers saw it. They knew. Why didn't I notice how they acted around her? Mema Blessing sighed deeply. "Because you wanted to see the best in her. That is not a flaw, Amaka. That is your good heart." Amaka stared at his hands. "I was going to marry her, Mama. I was going to build a life with someone capable of such cruelty." Mema Blessing placed her weathered hand over his. "But you didn't. God protected you by revealing the truth before it was too late." Amaka wanted to believe that. He wanted to feel grateful. But mostly he felt confused, hurt, and betrayed completely. Meanwhile, downstairs, the household was transforming. Without Victoria's oppressive presence, the atmosphere lightened dramatically. Workers laughed freely. They played music while cleaning. They told jokes during meals. And they all agreed on one thing. Ngozi had changed everything by refusing to accept mistreatment silently. One afternoon, the head housekeeper pulled Ngozi aside privately. "The staff wants to thank you properly," she said warmly. Ngozi looked confused. "Thank me for what?" The housekeeper smiled. "For having the courage to stand up. You reminded us all that we deserve respect." Ngozi felt embarrassed. "I didn't do anything special, Ma. I just spoke honestly." The housekeeper patted her shoulder. "Sometimes honesty is the most special thing of all." That evening, Amaka called a household meeting. Everyone gathered in the main living area nervously, unsure what to expect. Amaka stood before them, looking tired but sincere. "I owe all of you an apology," he began quietly. The workers exchanged surprised glances. "I brought someone into this house who hurt you. I didn't pay attention to how she treated you. I failed to protect you." The head butler spoke up respectfully. "Sir, you didn't know." She hid it well. Amaka shook his head firmly. "I should have known. I should have asked. I should have listened more carefully." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "From now on, things will be different. If anyone ever mistreats you, I want to know immediately. This is your home, too. You deserve safety and respect here." Several workers wiped tears from their eyes. The head housekeeper spoke emotionally. "Thank you, sir. We appreciate your kind heart." Amaka nodded gratefully. Then his eyes found Ngozi standing quietly in the back. "Ngozi, please step forward." Ngozi hesitated, then walked slowly to the front, her heart racing anxiously. Amaka smiled at her gently. "You did something remarkable. You stood for what was right even when it was dangerous. That takes extraordinary courage." Ngozi looked down shyly. "I only did what my parents taught me, sir. Never accept injustice quietly." Amaka's smile grew warmer. "Your parents raised you well." He paused thoughtfully, then continued, "I would like to offer you a different position. Not as a maid, but as my personal assistant. You have proven you have integrity, courage, and wisdom. Those qualities are rare and valuable." The entire room erupted in applause and excited murmurs. Ngozie's eyes widened in complete shock. "Sir, I don't have education or experience for such work." Amaka shook his head. "Education can be provided. Experience will come with time. But character, true character like yours, cannot be taught." Tears filled Ngozie's eyes. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Mama Blessing, who had been watching from the doorway, stepped forward smiling. "Say yes, child. This is your blessing." Ngozi wiped her tears and nodded. "Yes, sir. Thank you. I will work very hard and learn everything." The workers cheered loudly. Some hugged Ngozi warmly. Others congratulated her with genuine joy. That night, Ngozi lay in her small room, unable to sleep from excitement and gratitude. Just 1 week ago, she was a village girl who had never imagined such opportunities. Now her life was changing completely because she chose to speak truth respectfully. Meanwhile, Amaka sat on his balcony, staring at the Lagos night sky. For the first time since Victoria's arrest, he felt something other than pain. He felt hope. Hope that perhaps this painful experience happened to redirect his path towards something better. Hope that losing someone dishonest might mean finding someone genuine later. Hope that his future could still be beautiful despite this difficult present. Several weeks passed. Victoria's trial began. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Medical reports, security footage, witness testimonies, her own confession to the police. Her lawyers tried desperately to negotiate a reduced sentence. They argued she was young and foolish when it happened. They claimed she had changed and regretted everything deeply. But the judge was unmoved. Miss Chine Okonkwo was also young. The judge stated firmly, she deserved the chance to grow, to change, to live her dreams. You took that chance away from her permanently. Victoria received a 7-year prison sentence for involuntary manslaughter and abuse. She would also be required to pay substantial compensation to Chime's family. When the verdict was announced, Chime's family wept with relief. Justice had finally arrived after 3 long, painful years of waiting. Amaka attended the final court session, not to support Victoria, but to find closure. When their eyes met briefly across the courtroom, he felt only sadness. Sadness for the person she could have been if she had chosen kindness over cruelty. Back at the mansion, life continued forward. Ngozi excelled in her new role. Amaka enrolled her in evening business courses at the university. She learned quickly, worked diligently, and earned the respect of everyone around her. Mama Blessing visited regularly, pleased to see the household thriving without Victoria's toxic presence. She grew especially fond of Ngozi. "You remind me of myself when I was young," Mama Blessing told Ngozi one afternoon. "Strong but humble, brave but respectful." Ngozi smiled warmly. "You honor me, Mama." Mama Blessing patted her hand. "I speak only truth, child." Months passed. The scandal gradually faded from public attention. New stories replaced the old headlines. Life moved forward, as it always does, even after tragedy and drama. One Sunday evening, Amaka and Ngozi were reviewing business documents in his study. They had developed an easy, professional working relationship. She challenged his ideas respectfully. He valued her honest perspective. As they finished their work, Amaka leaned back thoughtfully. "Ngozi, may I ask you something personal?" Ngozi looked up. "Of course, sir." Amaka chose his words carefully. "That day when you stopped Victoria from slapping you, weren't you afraid?" Ngozi considered the question seriously. "Yes, sir, I was terrified. My hands were shaking underneath." Amaka looked surprised. "But you seemed so calm and strong." Ngozi smiled softly. "My father once told me that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what is right even when you are afraid." Amaka felt something stir in his chest. Admiration, respect, and perhaps something more that he wasn't ready to name yet. "Your father was a wise man," he said quietly. Ngozi's eyes grew sad. "He was, sir. I miss him every day." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Amaka spoke again. "Thank you, Ngozi." She looked confused. "For what, sir?" He smiled genuinely. "For reminding me that good people still exist. For showing me that integrity matters more than status or wealth. For helping me see clearly when I was blind." Ngozi felt her heart warm. "You are a good man, sir. You just needed to see the truth." As the sun set over Lagos, casting golden light through the study windows, both of them felt grateful. Grateful for painful lessons learned. Grateful for difficult truths revealed. Grateful for new beginnings born from painful endings. And somewhere far away, in a small village, Ngozi's younger siblings received another envelope full of money for school fees. They didn't know yet about their sister's promotion or her new life. They only knew she kept her promises and took care of them faithfully. And in a prison cell, Victoria sat alone with her thoughts. She had lost everything: her freedom, her reputation, her future with Amaka. But perhaps, if she allowed it, she might finally learn the lesson she had avoided her entire life. That true power comes not from controlling others, but from controlling yourself. That real strength shows itself through kindness, not cruelty. That lasting respect must be earned through character, never forced through fear. The mansion stood tall in the Lagos night, its windows glowing warmly. Inside, workers moved freely, smiling, talking, living without fear. Mama Blessing sat in the kitchen sharing stories with the cooks. The head butler organized schedules fairly. And in the study, Amaka looked at Ngozi with deep appreciation as she explained a business strategy with confidence and intelligence. Everything had changed because one person chose to stand firm. One person refused to bow to injustice. One person spoke truth when silence seemed safer. And sometimes that is all it takes. One moment of courage, one act of integrity, one voice refusing to stay silent. That is how differences are made. That is how lives are transformed. That is how futures are rewritten. And that is exactly what happened the day the new Maid stood up to the billionaire's fiancé. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to Heritage Stories channel for more inspiring stories.